talked about why we should take notes, I want to help you understand one way today of taking more effective notes. And this is a process that I like to call push the pause button. So there are 3 steps to this process. Step 1 is to actually find the information. Step 2 is to read or view the information. And then this is the most important part, is pause. Now, it's easy when you're doing research or you're doing a reading for a class, you just go through the entire thing and then you finish and that's it, you feel like you're done. But I'm going to bet that if you do that, once you finish it, you don't really remember what you just read about. And I do this too, and I used to do it as a student. I would just read through an entire thing and then I felt like my job was done, but then I really didn't get anything out of it. So I want you guys to think about pausing while you're absorbing this information. And then we move into the other crucial piece of this process, which is step 3, question the information. So the primary question you want to keep in mind when you're reading or viewing or whatever it happens to be, depending on the information type, is you want to think about, will any of this information help me answer my research question? If the answer is no, then you can go on and keep reading. If the answer is yes, then I want you to think about these additional questions for you to kind of grapple with the information and figure out how you can use it for this research project that you guys are doing right now. So think about things like, how does this information fit into what I already know? Does it add to anything I've discovered previously? Do I need clarification on any of this information? Does any of this information lead me to new questions about my topic worth exploring? How do I personally feel about this information? And how can I use this information in my final project? So now that I've described it to you, let's actually go through and see what it looks like in action with an example. So you'll see over here on the right, I have this worksheet that I was talking about when we started class today. And we're going to work through filling this out until you guys understand how to use it to help you take these more effective notes. So the first step is taking note of your research question. It's really easy, especially today, I'm sure something you can all relate to, that when you're researching, you can just kind of get overwhelmed by the information. There's too much out there to find, which can be a good and a bad thing depending on what you're doing. But an important thing to do is keep your research question in mind so you're actively searching for answers to it in particular, not just about information on your topic in general. So the question that you guys are working on right now, at least the general question, is how do artists choose tools, technologies, techniques, and materials to express their message or ideas? So now that I have that at the top of my page, it'll be easier for me to remember to do that. So like we just talked about, step 1 is to find the information. So you'll see on the left hand of the screen here that I've already found my information. So let's move on to step 2, which is read or view, in this case read, the information. So my topic that I've chosen is Ansel Adams, who is one of my personal heroes, which is why I chose him. Always something I wanted to know more about because I really love his work. So let's see what we can learn from this webpage. So, Adams Ansel, photographer and environmentalist, was born in San Francisco, California, the son of Charles Hitchcock Adams, a businessman, and Olive Bray. The grandson of a wealthy timber baron, Adams grew up in a house set amid the sand dunes of the Golden Gate. When Adams was only 4, an aftershock of the great earthquake and fire of 1906 threw him into the ground and badly broke his nose, distinctly marking him for life, which we can actually see in that picture up at the top there. A year later, the family fortune collapsed in the financial panic of 1907, and Adams' father spent the rest of his life doggedly but fruitlessly attempting to recoup. So I've reached the end of a paragraph, and this is the part where we think about that pausing. Hit the pause button. Let's consciously think about what we just read and see if it can help us answer our research question. So going through that, the thing that jumped out to me the most is, yes, I do think there's information that can help me answer my research question, and what that information is the fact that he was an environmentalist. So I'm going to go over to my note side of my table here. I'm going to put environmentalist. And now I'm going to take a couple seconds to react to that information and think about the other questions. So, how does this information fit into what I already know? Does it add to anything I've discovered previously? This is my first resource, so I can't really answer that question yet. But as you guys find more resources, you'll be able to work on that question too. Do I need clarification on any of this information? Not on the environmentalist bit. That makes sense to me so far. Does any of this information lead me to new questions about my topic worth exploring? I wonder what was the status back then in terms of environmental protection. So I'm going to write that question down. What was going on in Ansel-Adams' time in terms of environment protection? Why was he an environmentalist back then? And then, how do I personally feel about this information? I personally can totally relate to it because I love being outside. I love going to state parks. I really do that as much as I can in my free time. So I personally feel like he was a good guy. He was doing something worthwhile because I love the environment too. So I love the environment too and feel like I can relate to Ansel-Adams. And then how can I use this information in my final project? Now I know your final project is to take a photo from your historical photographer's perspective. Now, based off of this information alone, the fact that he's an environmentalist suggests that maybe one of his typical subjects, photographic subjects, was probably the natural environment, the natural world. So I'm going to put that down for now. I'll obviously find more out about that as I continue to research. But for now, this makes me think that his subject would likely be the natural world. Okay, and that's how you would go through and do that. And then you would do that for each piece of information in that section that you found relevant. So then after that, we'd move into guided practice. And for that, I would have students continue work with the information source I just started modeling with. And the way I would have it done is have one student read a paragraph out loud, and then everyone pauses for thinking time to think about those questions. And then the student who read out loud will answer the applicable questions, and then the section is opened up to the entire class. And then I would keep doing the process until every student has practiced. And that's really just a way to make sure that every student is thinking about it, every student gets a chance to talk about it, and also the fact that the original student answers and then the entire class can add on and kind of help each other come up with the answers to these questions, I feel like will just really create a collaborative atmosphere. And then after guided practice, I'm going to do a thing called a brain dump to boost confidence. And one of my motivational goals for this lesson was actually to boost the students' confidence in learning information skills and in note-taking particularly. So what a brain dump is it's a cool thing where after you're done doing the mini lecture and teaching a skill, you actually have students just take a couple minutes to write down everything they've learned so far on a piece of paper. And what this does is makes that makes that learning that they've been doing this whole time more tactile. It's right in front of them, because in the actual process of learning, we're not always aware of that we're absorbing this information, but if you have students write it down, then they know they've accomplished something so far, and they feel more confident going forward with it that they can actually do this on their own. And then after the brain dump, I created this visual kind of summary aid. I thought a lot about how to cater to the different learning styles, so after this, before they moved into independent practice, I would just kind of want to do an overall recap summary of the process and what kind of questions they should be thinking about, which is why I created this. And this I would just leave up on the board so they'd have it to refer to as they were doing independent practice. And then for independent practice, students would just continue using the graphic organizer, but they would do it with their own topics. I would let them find their own information since they are 12th graders, so they should be comfortable with that. But if they have any questions during the independent practice, I'd have them come up and write them up on the whiteboard. And then periodically, so maybe every 5 or 10 minutes, I would pause everybody's progress and answer those questions. And that's just a really great way to have students note their questions, but not let those questions stop them from making any progress. They can put it up on the board and know that I'm going to answer them very soon. And then for reflection, I'm going to have students on the back of their notes answer a couple questions. The first one would be choose one reaction from your second column and explain specifically how it helps you better understand what information you are reading or how you could use it. And that's just to get students thinking about how is this process helping me grapple with this information. And then the second question I'd have them answer is, how does this way of taking notes help you? How did it challenge you? And that's for them and also for me to get a sense of how they're doing with the skill. Are they having issues in any particular places? Is there anything else I need to address with them to make sure they feel comfortable with doing this in the future? And then the very last thing of the day, and this is just to promote satisfaction with the research process overall, is I would do a quick think, pair, share at the very end of the class where you're answering the question, what is the most interesting thing you learned from your research today? And that's just to get students excited about what they're finding and give them an opportunity to share that excitement with others. So that would be it for this lesson. Thank you guys for listening, and I really look forward to your feedback.